My name's Trey Allen, and I am a candidate for the North Carolina Supreme Court. I grew up outside of Lumberton, North Carolina, in rural Robeson County, and I currently live with my wife and 5 children just outside of Hillsborough. So I went to college at UNC Pembroke, close to where I grew up, then law school at Chapel Hill. I served 4.5 years in the Marine Corps following law school. Most of that time was spent overseas in Okinawa, Japan. I did do a tour in Iraq. When I came back to North Carolina, I had the privilege of serving as a law clerk to Justice Paul Newby, now the Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court. I practiced law in Raleigh after that for between 6 and 7 years, primarily focusing on education law, so representing school districts around the state. That involved a lot of litigation. I then became a professor at the UNC School of Government, where I focused on various aspects of North Carolina law, especially related to local governments, their powers and authorities and liability. And now I serve as the general counsel for the administrative office of the courts. And that means I run an office of lawyers who give legal advice to judges and clerks of court and magistrates throughout North Carolina. I believe very strongly that judges need to behave as judges and not as legislators. No one's authorized them to be legislators, and so they really have to stick to their role, and if they don't, they undermine our democratic process. And so how can a judge do that? How can a judge approach issues in a way that's objective and doesn't lead to outcomes that simply reflect the judge's personal views? I think in cases that involve constitutional claims, that means that a judge really needs to follow the original understanding of what the constitutional provision at issue meant when it was ratified, and not read into it the judge's own ideas about what our Constitution ought to be. In other words, follow the Constitution we have, not the Constitution that the judge wishes that we had. When it comes to statutes, and a lot of what judges do is interpret statutes passed by the General Assembly, the goal is to follow the intent of the legislature. Again, it's the legislature that's been empowered to enact the laws that we're going to be governed by, and the judge's role is to follow and enforce those laws. And so as a judge, when you are interpreting or looking at a statutory text, the key question is, what did the legislature mean by this? And once you figure that out, that's what's supposed to guide you. Understand that you don't know everything. Have some humility. Realize that other people have a lot to teach you. I'm proud of my 5 children and the people that I think they're turning out to be, although I would have to hasten to say that I think my wife deserves more credit on that score than I do. It's had a huge impact on my career. I think in part because I served overseas. I've seen some of the rest of the world, and that gave me a better sense of how blessed we are to be here in America, how wonderful it is to be a free people. Being in the military, you see a real cross-section of American life, and you see that we have so many talented people who do care, who care about the direction our country's going, who are willing to defend our country. As a judge advocate in the Marine Corps, I received a really sort of broad range of legal experience: criminal law, administrative law, operational law. So that really helped set me up for the rest of my career. Constitutional law. When I was in private practice in Raleigh, I had the opportunity to litigate a number of constitutional law cases, cases involving federal constitutional issues, but also state constitutional issues. They're really engaging intellectually, and of course they have enormous real-world consequences for the people of this state. So they were cases that I was happy to invest my energies in. I'm going to say Winston Churchill. You know, everybody knows that Churchill was a great leader of the United Kingdom during World War II. Fewer people know that he was also a tremendously talented and prolific historian, one of the greatest historians in English, certainly. So I'd love to have a meal with him. Barbecue, but don't ask me Eastern or Western. Well, I think for every young man who's blessed to have a father who cares about him, I think that's his dad. This election is incredibly important. We have the opportunity to change the majority on our North Carolina Supreme Court. I'm running to do that. I'm running to give the court a majority of justices who are going to follow the Constitution that we have and not rewrite it, follow the statutes that are adopted by the General Assembly and not rewrite them. We need a court that understands that judges are the servants of the law, not the masters of the law. I'm running to do that, and if I'm elected, I will serve the people of this state every day, working hard to apply the law fairly and impartially in every case that comes before me.